Thanks so much. Great introduction.
Beautifully done, everyone. A+.
Thanks for coming, everybody. I think my mic is on, yeah. First of all, I wanted to thank everyone for coming to my talk. I know it is almost time to have a drink. I will also get on that bandwagon and say, whoever claps the loudest for me gets the first drink. Okay. Oh, thank you. Don't even need it. Okay. So today I'm talking about demystifying community content. So I'm going to give you my hot takes on strategy, advocacy, and UGC. But first, I want to give a huge shout out to the Atlassian community team, many of whom are sitting in this audience, making me seem a lot more popular than I actually am. Thanks for the support, y'all. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, so I also want to recognize that it's kind of a humble brag to use the words many, members, and community team in the same sentence. So I want to call out all the community folks who manage content as just one of the million different things on their list of responsibilities. Y'all are the true heroes. And you know, the special thing about community is that nobody is ever alone. We have a sea of people at our fingertips all the time who need our help and who are willing to help us in return, which is so important, especially for content, because the key to healthy and scalable content is getting other people to do it for you. And I'm going to teach you how to do that in this talk and so much more. We're going to be talking strategy, we're going to be talking advocacy, and of course we're going to be talking UGC, my favorite. Fun stuff first. I think a lot of people in this room have heard from their boss that they need a community content strategy ASAP, and they need it yesterday by the very latest. And that's both intimidating and confusing, which are two things that should never go together. But it doesn't have to be. So I'm going to break it down in 5 simple steps today. So simple that the 5th step is just celebrating. And that's really important because without that step, I think a lot of content managers would quit. So to start, it's important to remember that a healthy community content strategy is equal parts business goals and user needs. Okay, so how do you know what your business goals and user needs are? First, you need a bunch of community stakeholders in a room. Second, you need a list functionality. We like to use Trello because it has great collaboration functionality, it has really good voting functionality, and also we have hella free licenses because Atlassian owns Trello. But you can just use pen and paper too, that works. So the exercise goes, everyone needs to brain dump all of the business goals that your company has. So that could be things like decreasing churn, increasing brand affinity, kind of like the boring company stuff. And then for the user needs column, everyone needs to put on their user shoes and come up with statements that are structured as when I want, so I can get. And you're going to have a huge list of statements, and what you do is you all get together and vote on the best ones and your favorite ones, and you spend time combining those business goals and user needs into one statement. And it takes finesse, and it takes a lot of negotiation, so this is not just kind of like a one-and-done type thing. So the Atlassian community content strategy statement is to instill confidence through authentic advice from other users and Atlassian in order to help users succeed with our products. Okay, so once you have that business goals and user needs statement, you can then start your community content quadrant exercise. And my favorite quote ever is, a community content quadrant was not built in a day. That is to say, this is not, I don't expect anyone in this room to leave with a filled out content quadrant. Again, it's something that you should be doing with your team, and I hope you do, because it's really helped the Atlassian community prioritize, measure, systematize, and define our content strategy. So I'm going to break down the quadrants one by one. The first quadrant is all about experience. So again, you need to think about your business goals and user needs in order to come up with what kind of community you want to be. You could be a support community. You could be a community of practice. You could be a hybrid of those two, like the Atlassian community is. But it's really important to understand what type of community you have, because that dictates your content strategy. Next up, we're talking editorial, and we're using this really pretty green color. And so we're talking about what criteria ensures content quality. Again, think about what type of community you have. If you have a support community, you're going to be looking at, what up, Andrew G? You're going to be looking at metrics like accepted answer rates, and you're going to want to look at your outdated content that gets a lot of traffic and update it. This is really important so that as you scale, your community content maintains its value. Okay, so we're talking structure. In this quadrant, you're going to need to bring in the folks who are actually designing your community. You want your designers, you want your engineers, because you're going to be choosing what type of content structure you want to show your users. So this is, again, if you have where you choose Q&A, or you decide to add a groups functionality or discussions functionality. Offering these things or actually not offering these things determine the type of content that is going to be shown on your community. And the last quadrant, which happens to be my favorite, not that anybody asked, is all about process, people, and systems. And so having processes in place like community content calendars, content review, social and email marketing, and moderator permissions ensure that the right people are seeing the right content and at the right time. And of course, the people delivering the content are folks that should also be on the same page about your content strategy in the first place. So shout out to all the analysts out there, support engineers, community managers, and really anyone who contributes to community at all. Okay, so this is a little bit of a how the sausage is made moment. This is the actual Atlassian community content strategy quadrant. And it ain't pretty, but it doesn't have to be, because the content quadrant is just that. It's a shape. It's not going to do any work for you. It's a great reference point. But here are just a few actual activities that we do to put our content strategy to work. We have a community content calendar on Trello to make sure we are serving our users with consistent content. We have a voice and tone guide to get everybody on the same page so that everyone is sounding good and consistent with the Atlassian brand. We have quality metrics in place to make sure that the accepted answer rates in our collections are high and that we are grooming old content. And of course, we have programs that scale all of this content strategy, and that's leaning on internal Atlassians and community members to help support our strategy. And I'm going to talk about all of that stuff next. Okay, strategy's over. I lied. That wasn't the most fun part. Advocacy is. And so participation from Atlassian employees is a key part of our content strategy. I'm sure this is the same across a lot of communities, but our users love to hear from us. And it humanizes our brand to have Atlassians in the community, and it also adds really valuable content. So how do we convince stakeholders that community should be a priority? I'll tell you. Okay. Don't hug people without asking first, as a disclaimer. But for those of you who don't know, Atlassian is a software company that has a ton of different products, and so that means a ton of relationship building. As such, when I joined Atlassian about 2 years ago, I scheduled meetings with 10+ product marketing managers, who are the target audience I was trying to get on community, and just pitched them on community, told them about the value props for them, but also kind of just created a one-on-one relationship. And it's important for them to have a face to put with the community name, not only so that they associate my smiling face in the lunch line with community every time they see me, but also so that they can kind of parrot my messages out to the rest of their team and be advocates for community when other people are kind of explaining things that might work well on community. And of course, like any new relationship, it's really important that you maintain it. And so some things that we do are send out a monthly community product report. And so the PMMs see this and they're reminded of community, get a pulse of what's going on. We include unanswered questions in this report, which is fantastic to get them to jump in and answer those questions that our support team couldn't get, and that adds immediate value. We include trending content as well to help them keep a pulse on what their users are talking about, good and bad and fun. We include magic moments because there's nothing like warm and fuzzies to get folks emotionally invested in community. And for the same reason, we include top contributors to give our coworkers gold stars. And again, there's nothing like warm and fuzzies to get folks to be emotionally invested in community. So once you've built your relationships and have established a communication flow, you gotta hit them over the head with helpfulness in a gentle way. Community is my #1 job, but I know for sure it's a PMM's 20th or 50th job. And so I know they have a lot going on in their mind, and it's really hard to hold all of this community information just out of memory. So I built guides, one of them called the PMM's Guide to the Community Content Galaxy, really easy to say, cool banner. And this guide has everything from how to post on community to examples of campaigns that PMMs have run in the past. So we have sections broken out for past AMAs, or past product announcements, or past just like Friday fun threads. And so the PMMs at their fingertips can see everything that they could potentially do with community. And the last lesson I'll impart to you about advocacy is one of peer pressure. I'm going to talk about a meeting I just ran recently, a planning meeting with all of the PMMs. And my goal for this meeting was to instill a sense of FOMO within the product marketing org. So the first half of the meeting, I asked some of our community superstars who are PMMs to come up and explain campaigns that they've done in the past that worked really well. And so now that everybody else is jealous, we used the second half of the meeting to work on this Trello board. And as you can see on the Trello board, each product has a different list. And so within that list, I added cards that have every single community action one might ever want to take, from AMAs to attending an in-person event to doing a product announcement. And so next, the PMMs would look at their list, archive the cards that didn't quite make sense, and add specs to the cards that they did want to try in the coming quarter. And so after this meeting, I went through their lists and I helped them to create content plans so that we could have some shared goals in the coming quarter, and they would be reminded of all the things they signed up for. And so I will say that you know your community content advocacy is working when at the beginning of a planning period, PMMs or stakeholders are coming up to you and saying, hey, I have this idea for engaging with my community users. Can you help me? And you say, maybe. If I have time. Okay, so best for last, we're talking user-generated content. All right, excuse this extended metaphor, but think of your community as a beautiful garden, and all of your members are precious little seeds, and they have the potential to bloom into a bouquet of wonderful user-generated content. All they need is your sunshine. Okay, end of metaphor. What I mean is, the flywheel is a really important thing to the community team. I think my team hears me say it at least 5 times per day. And what's great about the flywheel is that it's really simple and very effective. So to start your own flywheel, all you need to do is ask your community a question. Get them to chime in on anything. From there, look at their amazing answers and pick your favorites. Reach out to those folks and ask them to create new posts of their own that kind of elaborate on their original answer. And be sure to have them include a CTA that also asks their fellow members to chime in on their post, thus setting the flywheel into motion. And then, of course, repeat this with a lot of different community stakeholders, and pretty soon you have a community content wind farm. Okay, I left this slide in as a placeholder, but I think it's pretty funny to quote yourself. Okay, so some more official programs that Atlassian does to generate community content. One is the Atlassian Authors Program, which we created for the folks who have the special permissions to write articles. And those folks are our leaders, those folks are our Atlassian teammates, and also people that we award the permissions to if we like them or if they have exhibited expertise. Just kidding about the we like them part. But every month, we give these Atlassian authors a theme to write on, which is really crucial because the PMMs can use this as a way to get their agendas in front of our authors, and also a way to reinforce our authors to write about things that Atlassian cares about. And of course, every month we have a leaderboard, which, who am I kidding, is the real reason people are writing articles. And it's great to encourage folks who get a lot of engagement on their articles and who are sharing it with their networks a lot, because we rate by likes and things like that. Okay, and so I can't talk about gamification without mentioning Monique Vandenberg, who's sitting in our audience right now. She's our gamification queen. And she creates badges that reinforce positive behaviors amongst community members, such as participating in threads, commenting on topics of interests, and more. And people go crazy for these badges, literally crazy. They want to win them all, and it generates a lot of positive content as well. Here's an example of a badge she launched for the Atlassian Summit this past year. And the badge was aimed at garnering engagement in the Summit collection. And as you can see, it definitely worked in this fancy graph. This year's Summit collection engagement was way higher than past years, showing the power of a badge. And also, in the same vein, you can see we're pretty generous with the awards we give. They don't cost us anything, and the amount of positivity they generate is truly astounding and a little bit worrying as well. We love to recognize our community members who go above and beyond, and find that giving them shout-outs really reinforce positive behavior. And with all that said, I want to give you, the audience, an award for being so awesome. Thanks for listening.
Get on your feet, folks. You know the drill.
Thanks.